The story of life.
The soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers as Emma sat quietly on the park bench. It was her favorite spot, where the trees formed a gentle canopy above, casting dappled shadows on the ground. She'd come here often, though today felt different. Today, she was letting go of the weight of expectations. Emma had spent years trying to live up to what she thought others wanted. She would push herself to always be the best, always say yes, and always put others first, even when it left her exhausted. Yet sitting here now, listening to the quiet rustle of leaves, she felt a voice within her begin to speak, a voice she hadn't listened to for a long time. It said, "It's okay to take a break. It's okay to put yourself first." At first, she wasn't sure how to respond, but as she took a deep breath, the truth began to unfold before her. Loving yourself doesn't mean being perfect or endlessly giving. It means recognizing when you need rest, forgiving yourself when things go wrong, and embracing who you are in this moment, flaws and all. She reached down to touch a wildflower growing at the edge of the path. It wasn't the most beautiful flower she'd ever seen. Its petals were uneven, its colors faded, but it had grown here, strong and steady, reaching for the sun in its own unique way. And that was enough. Emma realized she, too, was enough. In that quiet moment of acceptance, she felt a lightness she hadn't felt in years. She promised herself to be more like that wildflower, growing, reaching, and loving herself just as she was. Over the next few weeks, Emma started making small changes. She carved out moments in her day just for herself, time to read a book, take a walk, or simply sit with her thoughts. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes the old habits crept back in, whispering that she should be doing more or worrying about what others thought. But each time she would gently remind herself of the wildflower's lesson. Growth doesn't have to be perfect, and beauty can be found in simply being. One evening, Emma found herself at a social gathering where she would usually try to please everyone, laughing at jokes she didn't find funny or nodding in agreement just to fit in. But that night, she chose to do something different. She spoke honestly and listened deeply, allowing herself to be fully present without feeling the need to perform. Surprisingly, it didn't push people away. In fact, it drew them closer. As she let her true self show, she noticed the connections she made felt more genuine, more real. There was a moment when a friend asked her how she was doing, and instead of the usual "I'm fine," she hesitated and said, "You know, I've been learning to take care of myself better lately. It's not easy, but I'm getting there." Her friend's eyes softened with understanding, and they began to share their own struggles, opening up in a way that Emma had rarely experienced before. It felt as though, by being honest with herself, she was giving others permission to be honest too. Gradually, Emma's life began to transform, not with grand changes or sudden epiphanies, but with the steady, quiet shifts that come from learning to love oneself more deeply. She stopped seeking validation from everyone around her and began to find it within. She made space for joy, embraced the quiet moments, and forgave herself for the times she stumbled. Emma wasn't just surviving anymore. She was truly living. And just like that wildflower, she continued to grow, leaning towards the sun, weathering the rain, and thriving in her own imperfect way. As the months went by, Emma kept nurturing the small habits that brought her peace. One day, she decided to take a break from social media, a place where she often found herself comparing her life to others. She replaced the scrolling with journaling, writing down her thoughts and feelings without judgment. At first, the blank pages seemed intimidating, but soon they became a space where she could express herself freely. Through the act of writing, Emma discovered layers of herself that had been buried under years of trying to be what she thought she should be. She wrote about her fears and frustrations, but also about the little things that made her happy. A perfect cup of tea, a sunny morning, the sound of rain tapping on the window. She began to realize that self-love wasn't just about accepting herself when she was at her best. It was also about being kind to herself when she wasn't. One evening, as Emma read back through her journal entries, she noticed something surprising. She saw a pattern of growth, a shift in the way she spoke to herself. Where there had once been harsh self-criticism, there was now a gentle voice of encouragement. She was learning to comfort herself in the same way she would comfort a friend. Whenever she stumbled, instead of berating herself, she would whisper, "It's okay. You're trying, and that's enough." Her newfound compassion began to spill over into other areas of her life. She found that, as she learned to forgive herself, she became more forgiving towards others. When a coworker snapped at her one day, she didn't take it personally. Instead, she remembered that everyone is carrying their own burdens, and perhaps they too needed a little kindness. She responded with understanding, and it seemed to soften the other person's demeanor. Emma also noticed a change in the way she approached challenges. In the past, she would have avoided trying new things for fear of failure. But now, she was willing to take risks, knowing that even if things didn't go perfectly, she would still be there for herself. She signed up for a pottery class she had always been curious about, and although her first few attempts were far from masterpieces, she found joy in the process. She laughed at the lopsided bowls she created and celebrated each little improvement, not because she needed to be perfect, but because she was enjoying the journey. One day, as she walked past the park where this journey had begun, she saw a child chasing a butterfly. The child's laughter was unrestrained, pure, and Emma was reminded of something she had nearly forgotten. Life isn't about getting everything right. It's about embracing the imperfect beauty of each moment, just like that child did, with joy and curiosity. For Emma, loving herself in the right way wasn't about reaching a final destination. It was an ongoing practice, a gentle unfolding. She knew there would still be days of doubt and difficulty, but she had come to understand that she didn't need to be perfect to be worthy of love. She simply needed to be true to herself, to cherish the person she was becoming, and to continue growing in her own time and in her own way. And so, Emma kept living, kept loving, and kept growing, one imperfect, beautiful day at a time. Months turned into a year, and Emma's life had subtly transformed. She noticed a sense of freedom in her daily routine, a kind of contentment that came not from grand achievements but from small, meaningful moments. She no longer felt the need to fill every minute with tasks or to measure her worth by productivity. Instead, she found herself savoring life more deeply, spending mornings watching the sunrise, enjoying unhurried cups of coffee, or simply listening to the sound of the world around her. Emma had also discovered the power of saying no. In the past, she would agree to every request, fearing that declining would make her seem unkind or selfish. But now, she understood that setting boundaries was an act of self-respect. She began to choose her commitments more carefully, giving herself permission to say no without guilt. With each boundary she set, she felt a little stronger, a little more in tune with what she truly needed. There was one afternoon when a friend asked her to help organize a large event. It was the kind of thing Emma would have automatically agreed to, pushing herself to exhaustion just to please others. But this time, she took a moment to think. She was already feeling stretched thin from other responsibilities, and the thought of adding more to her plate didn't sit right. She replied honestly, "I'm really sorry, but I don't have the capacity to take this on right now." To her surprise, the friend responded with understanding and even thanked her for being upfront. It was a small moment, but for Emma, it felt like a victory. Proof that respecting her own needs didn't mean letting others down. As she practiced prioritizing herself, she began to see how much energy she had previously spent worrying about other people's opinions. She realized that she had been carrying the weight of expectations, both real and imagined, for far too long. Now, with each conscious choice to be herself, she was shedding that weight. She learned to dance in her living room just because it made her happy, to wear bright colors even if they didn't match, and to laugh out loud without holding back. There were also quiet nights when Emma would lie in bed, reflecting on the day with gratitude. She'd list 3 things she appreciated, no matter how small. Sometimes it was as simple as the taste of fresh fruit or the warmth of a hot shower. Other times, it was the joy of a spontaneous conversation with a neighbor or the sense of accomplishment after completing a long overdue project. It wasn't about ignoring the difficult moments or pretending everything was perfect. It was about acknowledging that, even in an imperfect world, there were still countless reasons to feel thankful. The more she practiced gratitude, the more she found to be grateful for. She began to see beauty in the everyday things she had once overlooked. The way sunlight danced through the window in the afternoon, the soft rustle of leaves on a windy day, or the comforting hum of the city as it drifted into the night. She felt a deep connection with these small joys, and they became a constant reminder that life was not about grand successes, but about finding wonder in the ordinary. One day, Emma received a message from an old friend who hadn't spoken to her in years. The friend had noticed the change in Emma, from the way she carried herself to the way she expressed joy. They asked, "What's your secret? You seem so at peace." Emma paused before replying. It wasn't that she had discovered a secret formula or unlocked some hidden part of life. What had changed was her approach to herself. She had learned to be gentle, to give herself grace, and to find fulfillment not in being everything to everyone, but in being enough for herself. Her reply was simple. "I stopped trying to be perfect. I started learning to love myself, just as I am." With time, Emma realized that this journey wasn't about becoming someone new, but about returning to who she had always been, deep down. It was a journey of remembering, of reconnecting with her true self, and of embracing all the parts of her story, past, present, and future. And with each day as she continued to grow in self-love, Emma felt more alive, more herself, and more at peace than ever before. As Emma's journey continued, she found herself drawn to new experiences that would have once seemed daunting. She joined a hiking group, something she'd always wanted to do, but had hesitated to try. The thought of being out of her comfort zone, surrounded by people she didn't know, trekking along unfamiliar paths, had once been enough to keep her away. But now, Emma welcomed the challenge as a way to grow, not because she needed to prove anything, but because she wanted to see what she was capable of. Her first hike was not easy. The steep trails tested her endurance, and there were moments when she had to stop and catch her breath, her muscles aching with every step. Yet with each pause, she took in the breathtaking scenery around her. Rolling hills stretching out beneath a wide blue sky, the scent of pine trees filling the air, and the soothing sound of a nearby stream. It wasn't about reaching the top as quickly as possible. It was about enjoying the journey, one step at a time. Emma began to notice a parallel between her hiking experiences and the way she approached life. She realized that, just like the trails, her journey wasn't always smooth. There were uphill climbs and moments when she needed to slow down. But there were also stunning views, unexpected joys, and a deep sense of fulfillment in every step forward, even the difficult ones. Each time she reached the summit, no matter how small, she felt a quiet pride in knowing she had made it, not by pushing herself relentlessly, but by listening to her body and honoring her pace.
You're listening to Stories of Life on the M. Brian channel. This series is crafted to bring you comfort and tranquility, perfect for winding down at the end of the day. Each story is a gentle escape, guiding you through moments that soothe the mind and ease you into a peaceful sleep.
As her confidence grew, so did her willingness to share her story. Emma started writing about her journey of self-love on a personal blog. She wrote not to impress or seek validation, but to connect with others who might be on a similar path. She shared the ups and downs, the setbacks and the triumphs, hoping her words might offer comfort to someone else who was struggling to find their own way. To her surprise, people began reaching out, sharing their own experiences and expressing how her words resonated with them. Some talked about their battles with self-doubt, others about the pressure to meet society's expectations. They thanked her for being open, for making them feel less alone. Emma was moved by these messages. She hadn't realized how many people were quietly struggling with the same fears and insecurities she had faced. One evening, she received an email from a reader named Lily, who wrote, "Your story has given me the courage to start my own journey of self-acceptance. I've spent years trying to fit a mold, but your words helped me see that it's okay to just be me." Reading Lily's message, Emma felt a profound sense of connection, as if a bridge had formed between them. It was then that she realized that loving herself in the right way didn't just change her life. It had the power to touch others too. Inspired by the impact her writing was having, Emma decided to start hosting small gatherings where people could come together to talk about self-care, mental health, and personal growth. She called them moments of connection. The meetings were simple: a few chairs in a circle, a cozy atmosphere, and a space where everyone was welcome to share or just listen. Each session began with a quiet moment of reflection, followed by open conversations about the ups and downs of life. At the first gathering, Emma was nervous. She wasn't sure what to expect, or whether anyone would even show up. But when the room slowly filled with people who had read her blog or heard about the event from friends, she felt a sense of gratitude and humility. She saw that this was not just about her story, but about creating a space where others could feel seen and heard. As the weeks passed, moments of connection grew into a supportive community. People shared stories of overcoming obstacles, the small victories they celebrated, and the struggles they still faced. Emma noticed that the more she connected with others, the deeper her understanding of self-love became. She saw it reflected in the courage of those who spoke, in the compassion they showed one another, and in the collective healing that took place in that circle. Through this journey, Emma learned that loving yourself in the right way didn't mean living a life free of challenges. It meant facing those challenges with an open heart, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and embracing the connections that make you feel alive. She found that self-love was not a destination, but a practice, an ongoing process of growth, kindness, and connection, both with herself and the world around her. And so Emma's story continued. She kept hiking new trails, writing her thoughts, and creating spaces for others to share their own journeys. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't need to be. She was enough, just as she was. And in learning to love herself, she had found the greatest gift of all, a life filled with meaning, beauty, and a sense of belonging that could never be taken away. As moments of connection became a regular event, Emma noticed how the gatherings began to change, not only the lives of those who attended, but also her own. She found that every time someone shared their struggles, victories, or moments of clarity, it deepened her understanding of herself. It was as if each story was a reflection, revealing different facets of the journey towards self-love. One evening, a young woman named Ava attended the gathering for the first time. She spoke hesitantly, sharing that she often felt overwhelmed by anxiety and struggled to accept herself. Her voice trembled, but she continued, "I've spent so much time trying to be what everyone else expects. I don't even know who I am without all these expectations." The room was silent, and Emma could feel the weight of Ava's words. She had once been in that same place, lost, trying to fit into a mold that wasn't hers. Emma responded gently, "You don't need to know all the answers right now. It's okay to take time to figure out who you are, step by step. It's a process, not a race." The others nodded in agreement, and for a moment, the room seemed to breathe as one. A shared understanding that self-love is a journey everyone takes at their own pace. After the gathering, Emma and Ava spoke briefly. Emma shared some of the small practices that had helped her, like journaling, meditation, and letting go of the need for constant validation. "It's not about finding a perfect version of yourself," she said. "It's about learning to be kind to the person you already are." Ava thanked her, a small but genuine smile forming on her face, as if a burden had been lifted, even if only slightly. The encounter with Ava stayed with Emma for days. It reminded her of the importance of reaching out to others, not because she had all the answers, but because everyone could use a little more kindness and understanding. It also reminded her to continue working on herself, to practice what she shared with others, and to remain open to growth, even if it came in unexpected forms. As time passed, Emma took on new challenges that she once would have shied away from. She began volunteering at a local community center, teaching art to children. It was a passion she had set aside years ago, thinking it was impractical or not important enough. But as she picked up a paintbrush for the first time in years, she felt a familiar joy stirring within her. It was as if a long-forgotten part of herself had resurfaced, and she welcomed it with open arms. Emma's days became filled with vibrant color, laughter, and the beautiful chaos of children discovering the world through art. The kids would often run up to her, eager to show off their creations. Abstract swirls, stick figures, messy splashes of paint. Emma loved the way they expressed themselves without fear of judgment. It reminded her of the freedom that comes from embracing imperfection. She encouraged the children to see the beauty in their mistakes, to understand that even a wrong brushstroke could be turned into something wonderful. She began to apply this mindset to her own life. When something didn't go as planned, instead of seeing it as a failure, she asked herself, "What can I create from this?" This shift in perspective allowed her to see setbacks as opportunities for growth, rather than obstacles to avoid. It made life feel more like an evolving work of art, where every experience added new colors, textures, and dimensions. One evening, as Emma walked home from the community center, she stopped by the park where she used to sit and think, back at the beginning of her journey. The old bench was still there, and she took a moment to sit down. She thought about how far she had come, from a time when she didn't know how to love herself, to now, when she was not only finding peace within, but also helping others do the same. Emma knew her path wasn't finished. There would still be hills to climb and moments of uncertainty. But now, she had the tools and the mindset to navigate those challenges. She understood that loving herself was not a final destination, but a continuous practice, one that would grow and change just as she did. And with every person she met, every story shared, and every step taken, she felt herself becoming more aligned with the person she was meant to be. As she left the park that night, Emma looked up at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. She felt a quiet gratitude for the journey, for the struggles and the triumphs, and for the realization that she was and always had been enough. She knew that wherever life took her next, she would keep walking her path with an open heart, embracing the beauty of imperfection and the endless possibilities that came from loving herself in the right way. Weeks passed, and Emma's life continued to unfold in unexpected and meaningful ways. Her art classes at the community center grew, attracting not just children, but also adults who wanted to reconnect with their creative sides. She noticed how art brought people together, creating a space where they could share their experiences, express emotions, and let go of the stress that often built up in their daily lives. One evening, a middle-aged man named Henry attended the class. He was quiet at first, keeping to himself, as if uncertain whether he belonged there. Emma encouraged him to pick up a brush and simply let the colors flow, without worrying about the outcome. "It doesn't have to be perfect," she said softly, echoing the advice she had given herself many times. "Just paint what you feel." Henry nodded and began hesitantly, making slow, deliberate strokes on the canvas. As the class progressed, Emma noticed him relaxing, becoming absorbed in his work. When the session ended, he approached her with a small smile. "I used to paint when I was younger," he admitted, "but I stopped when life got too busy. It's been years since I've done anything like this." Emma sensed the weight behind his words, the regret of lost time. "It's never too late to start again," she replied. "Art doesn't care about how long it's been. It's just happy to have you back." The next week, Henry returned, bringing with him a sense of quiet determination. He wasn't the only one. Others began attending more regularly, finding solace in the simple act of creating. The classes became a sanctuary for those who needed a break from the demands of life, a place where they could reconnect with themselves and with one another. Emma watched as friendships formed, as stories were shared over palettes of color, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing she had helped to create this space. One night after class, Emma found herself lingering in the quiet of the studio, surrounded by the faint scent of paint and the soft hum of the city outside. She sat down at an easel and began to paint for herself, letting the brush move without any specific goal. As colors blended and shapes took form, she felt her own emotions rising to the surface. Joy, sadness, hope. It was a reminder that no matter how much she grew or how far she traveled on her path, she would always be a work in progress, just like her art. As Emma's confidence in herself and her purpose grew, she started to look beyond the community center, imagining new ways to reach even more people. She thought about hosting workshops on self-expression, where art and personal growth would intertwine, helping participants explore not just their creativity, but also their hearts. It wasn't about teaching others to be great artists. It was about showing them how to see the beauty in their own imperfect lives. One day, while sketching in the park, Emma met an elderly woman named Marjorie. She sat on a nearby bench, watching Emma work with quiet curiosity. After a while, she spoke up. "You draw with such freedom, my dear. I used to paint too, many years ago." Emma smiled and invited her to sit closer, handing Marjorie a sketchpad and pencil. "Why don't you join me?" she offered. "It doesn't matter how long it's been. Art doesn't mind." Marjorie chuckled, accepting the sketchpad with a glint of nostalgia in her eyes. She began to draw slowly, lines forming on the paper as memories seemed to flow from her hands. "I forgot how soothing this feels," she murmured, as if rediscovering a piece of herself that had long been set aside. For the next few weeks, Emma and Marjorie met regularly in the park, sketching together and sharing stories. Marjorie spoke of her youth, of dreams that had shifted and changed over the years, and Emma listened, absorbing the wisdom in her words. She realized that self-love was not just for the young or those in the midst of change. It was a lifelong journey, one that continued to evolve, no matter your age. One day, Marjorie brought an old, weathered notebook filled with poems she had written in her 20s. She hesitated before handing it to Emma, as if revealing a secret. "I used to dream of publishing these," she said softly, "but life got in the way." Emma carefully turned the pages, feeling the depth and emotion in Marjorie's words. "These are beautiful," she said earnestly. "It's never too late to share them with the world." Inspired by Emma's encouragement, Marjorie began to read her poems at the moments of connection gatherings, her voice trembling with emotion, but growing stronger each time. The group welcomed her words, finding meaning in her verses, and Marjorie's presence became a treasured part of the community. Emma watched with admiration as the elderly woman rediscovered a part of herself that had been buried under the years, proving that self-expression had no age limit. In witnessing Marjorie's transformation, Emma saw a reflection of her own journey. She understood more deeply that self-love was not just about learning to accept oneself, but about nurturing the parts of you that bring joy and purpose, no matter where you are in life. It was about allowing the past to inform the present, while still embracing the possibilities that lay ahead. Emma's path continued, winding forward with new friendships, shared stories, and creative expression. She had learned to let go of the need for perfection, to appreciate life's unpredictability, and to trust in the beauty of her own unique journey. And with each step, she knew that as long as she kept loving herself in the right way, she would always find the strength to grow, to heal, and to inspire others to do the same. As Emma's journey progressed, she found herself becoming more attuned to the rhythm of life, its highs and lows, the ebbs and flows that shaped her experiences. The connections she made and the people she encountered left lasting impressions, each one adding a new layer to her understanding of self-love. She often reflected on how her path had begun with small, tentative steps, and now she was embracing a life that felt more authentic and fulfilling than she had ever imagined. Her workshops on self-expression started to gain attention, not just locally but from nearby towns. People of all backgrounds and ages began attending, drawn by the idea of reconnecting with themselves through art and sharing their personal stories. Emma felt a deep sense of purpose in guiding others to find their own ways of expressing the emotions they kept hidden. The workshops became a space of healing, where participants could shed the burdens of expectation and allow themselves to be vulnerable. One particular session stood out to Emma. A young woman named Lily attended for the first time, sitting quietly at the back, seemingly hesitant to participate. As the workshop progressed, Emma encouraged everyone to create something that represented their current feelings, without overthinking. "Art doesn't judge," she said softly. "It just lets you be." Lily remained still for a moment before picking up a piece of charcoal and beginning to draw. Her strokes were bold, almost chaotic, as if she was pouring her emotions onto the paper without restraint. When she finished, Emma walked over to see a dark and stormy image, a swirling mass of black lines that seemed to capture a deep inner turmoil.
You're listening to Stories of Life on the M. Bryan channel. This series is crafted to bring you comfort and tranquility, perfect for winding down at the end of the day. Each story is a gentle escape, guiding you through moments that soothe the mind and ease you into a peaceful sleep.
"That's very powerful," Emma remarked gently. "Would you like to share what it means to you?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "I've been struggling with depression for a long time," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "It feels like I'm trapped in this constant darkness, and I don't know how to get out." The room fell silent as the other participants listened intently, their own expressions softening with empathy. Emma placed a comforting hand on Lily's shoulder. "Thank you for sharing that," she said. "It takes courage to face those feelings and even more to express them. But remember, darkness doesn't last forever. Sometimes just acknowledging it can be the first step towards finding light again." After that session, Lily continued attending the workshops, slowly opening up and sharing more about her journey. Her art began to change too. Subtle colors emerged amidst the darkness, small signs of hope that Emma noticed with a quiet sense of pride. It was as if Lily was finding a way to heal, little by little, through the creative process. Emma's own self-discovery continued to evolve. She had always known that self-love was about more than just accepting herself. It was about nurturing her passions, setting boundaries and allowing herself to be both strong and vulnerable. As her work grew, so did the challenges, but she welcomed them as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to fear. She began dedicating more time to her personal projects, revisiting some of the hobbies and dreams she had once set aside. She took up photography, capturing moments that resonated with her. Simple things like sunlight filtering through trees, the laughter of children playing, or an elderly couple walking hand in hand. These small moments of beauty reminded her to stay present, to appreciate the world around her, even as she worked on building her future. Emma also continued to deepen her relationships with the people she met along her path. She kept in touch with Ava, who had since started a blog about mental health and self-compassion. The two of them collaborated on an online workshop, combining art and writing as tools for healing. The response was overwhelming. Many people shared how the experience helped them process their emotions in ways they hadn't been able to before. Henry, the man who had rediscovered his love for painting, began volunteering at the community center, helping Emma with the art classes. Together, they planned an exhibition showcasing the works created by the workshop participants, allowing people to share their art and stories with a wider audience. Emma saw the pride in their eyes as they hung their paintings and drawings on the walls, and she felt a profound sense of joy in witnessing their growth. One evening, after the exhibition, Emma found herself sitting by the window in her apartment, a cup of tea in hand. She gazed out at the city lights, reflecting on how her life had changed since she first decided to embark on this path. She remembered the doubts and fears that had once held her back, the struggle to find her voice, and the courage to use it. Now, she saw herself as someone who had not only found a way to love herself but also helped others discover that same love within themselves. But Emma knew that the journey was ongoing. There were still days when self-doubt crept in, moments when she felt overwhelmed by the weight of expectations. Yet, each time she reminded herself of the lessons she had learned along the way, that it was okay to ask for help, to take breaks, and to embrace imperfections as part of her unique story. As she took a sip of tea, a sense of peace washed over her. She thought about how self-love wasn't a destination, but a series of choices she made every day. It was in the way she allowed herself to rest without guilt, in the way she spoke kindly to herself, and in the way she continued to pursue the things that brought her joy. Emma smiled, feeling grateful for every step she had taken, for every person who had shared their journey with her, and for the way her own path had unfolded. She knew there would be more stories to tell, more people to meet, and more moments of growth ahead, and she was ready, with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose, to continue walking her path, wherever it might lead. Months went by, and Emma's life continued to expand in unexpected ways. The exhibition of art from her workshops had gained positive feedback, encouraging her to plan more community events. She saw the power of art as a bridge, connecting people who otherwise might never have crossed paths, opening dialogues, and fostering a shared understanding of each other's struggles and triumphs. Emma decided to organize a new project called Healing Through Art, which would bring together various forms of creative expression: painting, poetry, music, and dance. She wanted the event to be more than just an exhibition. It would be a celebration of healing, where people could come together not just to observe, but to participate, to share their stories and feel understood. As she planned the event, she collaborated with local musicians, dancers, and writers, bringing different artistic voices into the fold. She reached out to Marjorie, asking if she'd like to read her poems again, this time accompanied by a soft instrumental background. Marjorie, delighted and a bit nervous, agreed. Henry offered to paint live during the event, allowing the audience to witness the creative process in real time. Lily, who had come so far in her own journey, volunteered to perform a piece of spoken word, sharing her story of overcoming darkness and finding light. On the night of the event, the venue was filled with people of all ages, backgrounds, and stories. The energy in the room was palpable, a blend of excitement, anticipation, and a quiet understanding that they were all there for something deeper than just entertainment. As the program began, Emma took the stage to welcome everyone, her heart swelling with gratitude for how far she and the community had come. "Tonight isn't just about art," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It's about the courage to be vulnerable, to express who we are, and to heal together. Each person here has a story worth sharing, and every piece of art, every song, every dance is a testament to our resilience." The evening unfolded beautifully. Marjorie's poems touched many hearts, her voice weaving stories of love, loss, and hope. Henry's painting evolved with each stroke, capturing the atmosphere of the room, layers of colors and emotions merging into something that spoke of healing. Lily's spoken word performance left the audience in silence, followed by a wave of applause. Her words, raw and real, resonated with many who had faced similar struggles. Throughout the night, people approached Emma to share their own experiences, expressing how the event had touched them, reminding them of their own journeys. Some had come to watch and left with a newfound inspiration to express themselves, whether through art, writing, or simply speaking up. Emma felt overwhelmed with the sense of community, the realization that her efforts had helped create a space where healing could happen collectively. As the event drew to a close, Emma looked around the room, seeing the connections being made, strangers who were no longer strangers, conversations flowing effortlessly, smiles exchanged. It was everything she had hoped for and more. And in that moment, she knew she was on the right path, not just for herself, but for everyone who had come to find a piece of themselves that evening. Following the success of healing through art, Emma continued to deepen her involvement with the community. She began to hold monthly gatherings called Open Circle, where anyone could share their art, music, or stories. It was a casual, welcoming space where the focus was on self-expression without the pressure of perfection. It didn't matter if someone was an experienced artist or picking up a brush for the first time. Everyone was invited to share whatever was in their heart. The Open Circle quickly became a cherished tradition, with new faces appearing each month. Emma noticed how these gatherings began to foster a sense of belonging. People who had once been hesitant to speak or share their work grew more confident with time. Emma watched as participants transformed from shy individuals sitting in the back to active contributors who inspired others with their stories and creativity. She herself took part in every gathering, sharing some of her recent art pieces or talking about her own challenges and breakthroughs. She wanted people to see that even though she was leading the events, she was still on her own journey, learning and healing along with them. It was important for her to show that self-love was not a state one reached and then rested in. It was an ongoing practice, filled with ups and downs, moments of doubt and triumph. One evening at the Open Circle, Emma shared a story about a recent struggle she had faced, how the pressures of growing her projects and balancing personal life had left her feeling overwhelmed. "It's easy to feel like you're not doing enough," she confessed, "even when you're giving it your all. But I'm learning that sometimes the best thing you can do is pause, breathe, and remind yourself that you are enough, just as you are." Her honesty resonated deeply with the group. It opened up a conversation about burnout, about the importance of setting boundaries and recognizing one's limits. That night, Emma realized that self-love wasn't just about loving oneself during the good times. It was about being gentle with oneself during the challenging times too. It was in those moments of struggle that self-love truly showed its worth. guiding her back to balance. As the open circle continued to grow, Emma decided to expand its reach by launching an online community where people could share their stories and creative works from anywhere in the world. She hoped that this virtual space would provide support and inspiration to those who might not have access to such gatherings locally. It wasn't just about spreading her influence. It was about spreading the idea that everyone deserved a place to be seen, heard, and valued. Emma's journey continued to unfold in unexpected ways. Her path was no longer just her own. It was interwoven with the lives of so many others who were on their own journeys of healing and self-love. She had come a long way from the days when she doubted her own worth, when she questioned if she had anything meaningful to offer. Now she saw herself as a part of something bigger, a movement toward embracing our shared humanity and finding beauty in our imperfections. And so Emma walked on, not with a destination in mind, but with a heart open to whatever lay ahead. Her story was still being written, with every new person she met, every piece of art she created, and every step she took on this path of self-love and community. Emma's life kept unfolding like a story, with new chapters waiting to be written. The open circle had grown beyond what she had initially envisioned. It wasn't just a gathering anymore, but a movement, a place where people could come and share not just their art, but their hearts. The stories shared within the circle revealed not only pain and struggle, but also joy, hope, and the strength to keep going despite the odds. One afternoon, Emma received an email from a woman named Clara, who lived in a city hundreds of miles away. Clara explained how she had stumbled upon the Open Circle's online community during a difficult period in her life. She had been struggling with loneliness after moving to a new place, and reading the stories and viewing the art shared by others gave her a sense of connection she desperately needed. Emma was deeply moved by the message, realizing that the impact of her work was reaching far beyond her local community. Inspired by Clara's story, Emma decided to take the Open Circle on the road. She planned a series of workshops and gatherings in various cities, hoping to bring the same sense of community and healing to people who couldn't attend the regular meetings. She reached out to friends and collaborators in different towns, asking if they would help her organize local events and spread the word. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People were eager to be a part of something that celebrated authenticity and connection.
You're listening to Stories of Life on the M. Brian channel. This series is crafted to bring you comfort and tranquility, perfect for winding down at the end of the day. Each story is a gentle escape, guiding you through moments that soothe the mind and ease you into a peaceful sleep.
The first stop on the tour was a small town nestled in the hills, where Emma's friend Sophie had recently opened a cafe that doubled as a community space. Sophie had arranged for the workshop to take place in the cafe's cozy back room, where colorful cushions were scattered on the floor and art supplies were laid out on tables. As people arrived, there was a quiet buzz of anticipation, the kind of atmosphere that made Emma feel both nervous and excited. The session began with Emma sharing a bit of her own journey, explaining why she had started the Open Circle and what self-love meant to her. "It's not always pretty," she admitted. "Self-love isn't just bubble baths and positive affirmations. It's learning to forgive yourself, setting boundaries, and being okay with your messiness." Her words resonated with the group, who seemed to relax into the space, knowing they didn't have to pretend to be anything other than themselves. Participants were invited to express themselves through art, writing, or movement. Some chose to paint, others to write poems, and a few even started dancing in the middle of the room, letting the music guide their bodies. As the evening wore on, people began to share their creations. A young man read a poem about grief, his voice trembling as he spoke of losing his best friend. An elderly woman displayed a sketch of a single tree, explaining that it represented her journey of rediscovering life after the passing of her husband. Emma watched as strangers comforted one another, offering words of encouragement or simply sitting together in silence. It was these moments that reminded her of the importance of human connection, how the simple act of listening, of being present for someone else, could make all the difference. She felt grateful for the opportunity to witness the raw beauty of people sharing their truths, unfiltered and real. As the workshop tour continued, Emma found herself growing along with the open circle. She learned to navigate the challenges that came with traveling, organizing events, and meeting the diverse needs of different communities. In each place she visited, she discovered new stories that shaped her understanding of self-love and healing. There were tales of survival, of heartbreak and resilience, and stories that showed her the many forms love could take: love for others, love for one's craft, and most importantly, love for oneself. In one city, she met a man named Carlos, who had spent years struggling with anxiety and depression. He shared how attending the workshop felt like a step towards reclaiming his life, how expressing himself through painting brought him a sense of relief he hadn't felt in a long time. Carlos's words stuck with Emma, reminding her that healing didn't always come as a grand epiphany, but as small, meaningful moments that quietly changed the course of one's life. The journey wasn't without its difficulties. There were times when Emma felt drained, the demands of traveling and leading workshops weighing on her. She struggled with maintaining her own self-care while trying to support others. But every time she questioned whether she was making a difference, another story would reach her. Someone would send a letter or approach after an event, thanking her for creating a space where they felt seen and heard. These reminders kept her going, fueling her desire to continue sharing her message. After several months on the road, Emma returned home, feeling a mix of exhaustion and fulfillment. The Open Circle tour had been a success, but she knew it was time to rest, to replenish the energy she had poured into her work. She spent quiet days at home, reconnecting with her own practices of self-care, painting for herself rather than for a workshop, writing in her journal, and taking long walks in the park. It was during this time that she realized how important it was to give herself permission to step back, to simply be without the pressure of doing. In the months that followed, Emma found a new rhythm. She continued to host the Open Circle locally, while also nurturing the online community that had blossomed during the tour. She began collaborating with other artists, therapists, and writers to create content that supported mental and emotional well-being. Her work evolved from just being about art to encompassing a holistic approach to healing, mind, body, and spirit. Emma decided to create a podcast series titled The Heart of Healing, where she interviewed individuals who had been a part of the Open Circle, sharing their stories of growth and transformation. She wanted to highlight the voices of others, to show that healing was a shared journey and that each person's story had the potential to inspire someone else. The podcast became a way to reach even more people, offering comfort and guidance to those who couldn't attend the gatherings in person. One day, Emma received a message from Clara, the woman who had inspired the tour. Clara wrote to say how the Open Circle had helped her not only cope with loneliness, but also find a sense of purpose. She had started a small community group in her own city, bringing people together to share their stories, just as Emma had done. Her message was a reminder that the ripple effect of kindness and connection could reach farther than Emma ever imagined. As Emma read Clara's words, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She realized that her journey and the work she was doing wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the countless others who had been touched by the Open Circle. about the lives that had changed and the communities that had grown stronger through shared vulnerability. And though Emma knew there were still challenges ahead, she was ready to continue, to walk her path with an open heart and a spirit of gratitude.